Hello and welcome to What Are We Talking About with Jamie Jakes. I am him, and I am sitting here with Film Demon, our college scout on this YouTube channel, Mr. Ryan Perrio. Ryan Perrio, how are you doing, buddy?
Doing great. Just going through game after game after game, highlight film after highlight film. Just this is my time. This is my moment to have fun. I enjoy kind of like looking at people, just trying to find somebody that maybe you saw, like maybe you see him in August and it's like, okay, you track them and see if in April, like everybody else is on board with you. That's the fun part of this.
This is also kind of my favorite. I'm a Lions fan, grew up a Lions fan, still am a Lions fan. So this time of year is kind of our Super Bowl historically. So I still love it, even though the Lions aren't picking as high as they usually are. And today we are talking about running back. So I'm going to give y'all my personal top 8 or 9 or 10 running backs that I have on my list, some 3 guys to watch for, and a list of my top 8 guys that I think are really going to produce in the NFL, I think kind of right away. And the reason we're starting with running backs on this podcast is because we've got a great class coming, and it's really going to shake up a lot of the running back rooms in the NFL. The mid-tier running backs that we got from the last few years' drafts, I think are going to get disrupted, and it's going to have massive dynasty implications. So we're going to get right into it here, Ryan Perrio. 3 guys I wanted to bring up that we're not going to talk a whole lot about tonight: Devin, Neal, Bashul, Tuten, the combine champion from the weekend. I think he ran like a 4.37. And a guy you mentioned right before we started recording, Trevor Etienne, Travis Etienne's, of course, little brother. And you mentioned that he might have a better career in the NFL than Travis. So go ahead and take it away, Trevor Etienne, Ryan Perrio.
So Travis is more of an explosive athlete. Like, I think he ran a 4.340. He was absolutely a blazer at Clemson. Trevor is not as much a blazer. He did run a 4.4, which is highly impressive. Like, the amount of running backs that ran 4.4 in this combine was like mind-blowing. Like, to me, this combine is like, if you average out their athletic metrics, this has got to be like the most athletic combine with no superstars. Like, it's like so many people ran so fast and did so many things that were like mind-blowingly athletic. That's like in
big
years
dude
past
too, Ryan. These are guys. These aren't like 195 pounders running these 4.4s. These are 220-pound dudes running fast 10-yard splits too, Ryan.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Like humongous. Yeah. But Trevor does everything well. He's an amazing route runner. Like, he is an absolute 3-down back in the NFL. Like, you'll probably can get him day 2, maybe even early day 3, just because of the depth of this class. If we really did a running back ranking for everything, this podcast would be a 4-hour podcast. But yeah, he does everything well. And I think that means you have more staying power in the NFL. Like, you can last longer, just because when Travis's explosiveness wears away, what does he have? Like, he's not an extremely good route runner. He's not an extremely powerful, like, first and second down pounder like Trevor can be.
Yeah, and we'll see what ends up with Travis Etienne in Jacksonville. They've been shipping off and cutting a lot of guys already this offseason, so I'll be interested to see if he stays with the team or if it's Tank Bigsby season over there in Duval. Yeah, Trevor Etienne did bench press 15 reps on the 225-pound press, 4.42 and a 30, little bit of a short vertical, 3.5 or 35-inch vertical. 5'9", 198 is what he weighed in at. Any other thoughts on the other 2 guys? The speedster ran a 4.3, Tuten or Devin, Neal?
Bashul kind of worries me, just because a lot of his highlight footage is basically his offensive line absolutely opened a truck lane that you could basically take off 50 yards through. And so it's really hard to gauge when someone's that athletic. Where did they come from? And like, why did I not see him on Saturday afternoons blowing up my, college football highlight feed?
Yeah, I agree. When I see a guy like that, I want him to look like he doesn't belong on the football field. And he just kind of looked like an above average guy from that position. Anything else on those, Ryan? You ready to get into the real top 7 of this program?
Yeah, I just Devin, slight hit on Devin Neal, just a small school kid, Definitely, he kind of reminds me of Ray Davis Sr. of Buffalo, kind of that you can get him in Saturday, but he can pretty much plug and play him. Like he won't be dynamic or game breaking, but he will get you, 5 to 7 yards per carry, possibly in the NFL. Nothing flashy.
That would be nice if he ends up to be a producer, but I just don't see it right now. So that's why we're going to skip over him and get into the good stuff. A guy I became aware of very, very recently, and hope maybe you can tell me exactly why he's not getting the hype that I believe he kind of deserves after I dug into him. Woody Marks from USC, went to high school in Atlanta, Georgia. His real name, ready for this? Jaquavius DeQuain Marks, which like, why aren't you going by at least JD? How did Woody come about? Love to find that story out. Maybe we will find that out if he is drafted in the second or third round this year. He originally started at Mississippi State, started 8 games as a true freshman, has school record for career receptions, which is pretty interesting, then transferred to USC for his final season where he ran for 1,133 yards, 5.7 yards per carry, 47 receptions, which is great. But with this draft class, it's just like, that's kind of average for this draft class. He's a dog. He can make a guy miss in a really, really small window, kind of like Jahmyr Gibbs style, which I really love on film. I like that more than the long speed that we're going to get into in a little bit. And I just followed him on Instagram. He plays NCAA college football on PlayStation 5. So got to love that too. He loves ball.
Yeah, maybe that's why he went by Woody. Maybe he got tired of typing his name in that game.
It's greatest.
That's a long setup screen. So he just went by Woody.
Tough to find the apostrophe. What's your thoughts on Woody, Ryan Perrio, number 7?
I think he's a product of just USC just having a really down year. I think USC was really struggling also with Pac-12 games. Is watching football, Pac-12 usually comes on late in the day, and you don't get a lot of those. You don't catch a lot of those games because they usually start Pac-12 after dark was one of them. So they're in the Big Ten now, but it was just, I think putting USC in the Big Ten this year just really, they just got left out of the hype with Ohio State, Michigan, and the regular Big Ten big boys just kind of taking up TV time.
Yeah.
But
and obviously night games, you're paying attention to Ashton, Jeanty, watching Boise State anyway, so it kind of makes sense.
But he's definitely good every down Swiss Army knife. Like I can definitely see him being like the second or third drive specialist. Like when you need to 2-minute drill, like he really shines in the receiving routes. Like he absolutely cooked at the Senior Bowl when he was going through routes with people. Like he was absolutely juking and wide open. And then he's got 4.4 speed. So once he is open, good luck.
Yeah. Senior Bowl guys, I love Senior Bowl guys because when was the last person who shined in the Senior Bowl? I guess Roman Wilson last year shined in the Senior Bowl and then didn't produce, but that was probably more injuries. We'll see if he gets it together. But guys who shine at the Senior Bowl just always seem to hit. Ryan Perrio.
Kareem Hunt, always in my mind about that Senior Bowl. He absolutely dominated that Senior Bowl. And then he went on to be really productive. He's still in the NFL, but he's a little but those first few years of him were just magical.
Yeah. Moving on to number 6, my bust pick of this group. And it's not too much shade on him. I just think there's a lot of guys that are a lot better. And he's getting a little bit too much hype, especially after the combine that he just competed in. TreVeyon Henderson out of Ohio State. Notes I got on him: he's a Christian lad, went to high school in Virginia. He was the Virginia Gatorade Football Player of the Year. His last season, he had only 144 attempts, which is a big red flag I have for both of these Ohio State running backs, with 1,016 yards, 7.1 yards per carry, which is obviously really, really good. 10 touchdowns, 27 receptions. Measured at 5'10", 202, which I thought was pretty good. 9.5-inch hands, some big hands. I think the biggest hands in this running back class. Ran a 4.43 40, 38.5-inch vertical in his combine performance. I thought he was going to weigh a lot less. That was the biggest surprise I had from his combine, and maybe that's why we saw him run a little bit slower than we were expecting, maybe put on a few pounds since his college days. What's your take on TreVeyon? And I'll give you kind of mine when you're done.
Okay. So, fun fact in the draft, even though he didn't run the fastest 40, he had the fastest mile per hour clocked in the 40. He got up to like 24. It is very interesting. Like, I feel like either one, he just got a poor launch, but what stands out to me is that he is an absolute dog in blitz pickup. He is absolutely one of the, and that will translate in the NFL. That is going to be something that'll get him on the field. If you can blitz pick up, because that's what holds a lot of the rookie running backs back, is just protection and being, not a liability back there on passing downs. So he's kind of Jahmyr Gibbs light to me. Like, I don't see him as an every down back. Like, he's got great speed, but I was like, if you wear him down, he'll burn bright, but he will burn fast if you use him as an every down back.
Yeah, that's why I have him. This is, of course, going to be a little bit slightly slanted. I try to make it like the best guys that I'm putting on the list. But this is going to be slightly slanted to fantasy football, of course, because this is kind of why we're getting into it, at least me personally. Is he going to get the volume? Is he going to be on the field all the time? Of course, with pass reps, that helps you get some dump off passes in half PPR leagues. But I just think there's a lot of other guys that are way, way better than him in this draft. And a guy we're going to come up to next, number 5 on my list, Quinson Judkins, Nigerian lad. He was the star in the national championship game. Don't know what his religion is. He had 194 carries for 1,060 yards, 14 touchdowns, 5.5 yards per carry, 22 receptions with 2 touchdowns on top of that. He's 21 years old. Alabama lad, human development and family services major over there in Ohio State. He was 6'2", 221. Interesting that he listed at 215 for Ohio State. So maybe he put on or lost a few pounds for the combine. He ran very, very well in the combine. I think he impressed a lot of people. I was kind of expecting it. Ran a 4.48 40, 38.5-inch vertical, 1,500 yards and 26 touchdowns as a high school senior. Started off as a backup at Ole Miss, set a school record that year, 1567 and 16 touchdowns as a freshman before he transferred. What's your take on Quinson Judkins? Do you have him ahead of or behind TreVeyon Henderson in your rankings?
It depends on what your need is. Like I said, if you got the early down pounder, then TreVeyon Henderson should be higher in your list because he is the home run. He's your home run threat. Quinson Judkins is definitely a strong back. Like, I believe he kind of reminds me of Breece Hall, like maybe a little bit more powerful Breece Hall. Like, Breece Hall is kind of savvy, but he's got that Breece Hall build, but he is absolutely getting past you on the goal line. He absolutely runs with tenacity. Like, you definitely see the passion and everything from him. Like, you see that kind of fight out of him that you kind of rally behind, because he's just kind of he's animated, gets his friends hyped out there with Ohio State, but was really productive even at Ole Miss. Like, he was absolutely, just he just wanted more, and as like you get more at Ohio State.
You get paid a lot more too, I think.
Yes.
I think that's a big part of it. He's got a 6 stiff arm. Like you said, he's got home run speed, just like Breece Hall, which I don't think it's talked about enough because his counterpart is known as the faster of the two. But they were a few tenths apart in their 40-yard dash, so you can't nitpick too much. And he was a good pass blocker too. TreVeyon Henderson had some sweet pass block highlights where he was just decleating people, but Judkins is trusted in pass block situations as well. Which gets us to the guys. I have those two guys a little bit lower in my tier list just because they don't have the amount of volume as the rest of these guys have. And we're going to get into something probably extremely controversial. I have Kaleb Johnson, K2 is his nickname, as my number 4 running back in this draft class. He's a Christian. He loves video games. He's a streamer. He drives a Porsche Coupe, which is good because that's a safe car and it's reliable. Watches Pat McAfee. This guy loves ball. I follow all these guys on Instagram. That's why I know all these things. Patrick Collins is his agent, CAA football. Last season in college, he had 240 carries for 1,537 yards, 21 touchdowns in Iowa's offense. And if I know anything about Iowa football players, if you can produce in an Iowa offense, you're going to be a superstar in the NFL, despite having a little bit of a disappointing combine performance. He also had 22 receptions on top of that. He measured out at 6'1", 225 at the combine, which is interesting because Iowa had him listed at 6 foot 225 in their promo. Big hands, 9 5/8 inch. He's from Ohio. You know, we all love Ohio fucks, just like Pat McAfee always says. We love him. Enterprise leadership major at Iowa, 21 years old. Late bloomer, this guy, which is what I like about him. 3-star out of high school. He wasn't like a superstar coming out of high school. Flipped his commit to Iowa. He did have a game or like a half game suspension to start at Iowa, which I don't know, maybe he missed a meeting or whatever. Who knows? Probably not that big of a deal. Wasn't like a multiple game thing. Not a big red flag for me, but maybe a yellow one.
Yeah.
Iowa's season touchdown and scoring record. So he beat out a kicker to break that record at Iowa, which is pretty sweet. Ran a 4.57 40, and that's the only thing he did at the combine. Didn't jump, didn't do a 3-cone, which I thought was interesting, but big boy running a 4.5. I'm happy with it. 225, 6'1". Ryan, what do you got on Kaleb Johnson out of Iowa?
This is my favorite running back prospect in that class. I've told you about him early on. Like, he's smooth. Like, even though he's 4.57, but he is just smooth. Like, he reminds me so much of Alvin Kamara, just because it's like you just don't expect it. It looks like everybody thinks they have a line on him, and he just trots his way to 70-yard runs, like with regular precision. He's a good pass catcher too. Like, he is, like, to me, he would be a perfect fit for Carolina. Like, he absolutely could do all the things and help Bryce Young out there, basically, with his offense. They just need some kind of dedicated running back, and they've tried to do that with Miles Sanders and Jonathan Brooks, who
Chuba. I think Chuba is probably going to be the number one there, even if Kaleb Johnson goes. But he would be a great compliment, kind of like what we were expecting Jonathan Brooks to be this year. And now we're kind of all counting on his career being over.
Yeah.
Jonathan Brooks, totally other subject. I wasn't a big fan of his film coming out of college. I don't know why he was drafted as the first running back. Maybe more of a thumbs down on Carolina, drafting a guy like that who's coming off of a bad ACL. You never know what's going to happen. Something bad happened, and we're never going to know, and we'll see what happens over there in Carolina. But yeah, going back to Kaleb Johnson, anything else on him, Ryan?
Just absolutely. Like, I just think he would be he could be a 3-down back in a West Coast kind of offense. We're running, he'd be great. Kansas City would love it. A running back like him, just smooth to go with Pacheco's, just basic pounding. Like, you need that other back now. I think Detroit, and even though Philadelphia, they use Gainwell a lot in the Super Bowl, even though they had Saquon, basically running it, they still use Gainwell and other backs. You need that other person to give your star running back or your first string a blow.
Yeah, and you have no concern about his 4.57 40, Ryan?
I don't, because I think he'll probably test better once he's at his pro day. That could be something where he just either felt something and you don't know with the combine now. There's so many like shadow games and things of people that sit out, people that rest, or, choose to do their pro day. It's hard to tell, but outside of a medical red flag, I don't have any worries about a 4.57 40.
Yeah. Moving on to a guy, I think I am the only one who's brave enough to rank at number 3. And honestly, I'm a little bit disappointed with myself because I originally had this guy ranked number 2. Omarion Hampton balled out at the combine, so I had to bump him up a little bit. But the number 3 running back in this class, and I don't think it's particularly close, a whole new tier ahead of everybody else we've talked about. It's the nature boy. It's Cam Skattebo. This guy is unbelievable. He's a wrecking ball. I've never seen players bounce off of him like he's the Incredible Hulk. You know what I'm saying? That would be my player comp to him. He's an exciting white. He's from California. And I have a theory on this, and maybe I wish we had NFL insider James Brewer here to shed some light on the subject. California guy, liberal studies major, which, of course sounds like you're studying like girls with blue hair or whatever, but it's just like the easiest major you can have. He only had one offer coming out of high school, despite him running for 3,550 yards and 42 touchdowns, leading his team to a state championship in California. He had one D1 offer to Sacramento State. I wonder why. Maybe because Cam Skattebo, he's a nature boy. You know what he's not? A books and math boy. Okay? This guy stinks at school, and I am convinced that is why he didn't have any offers coming out of college, and he had to transfer to the academic powerhouse Arizona State, where he led the boys to a pretty good little run. He did jump. He jumped a 3.5 or 38.5 inch vertical, did not run the 40. So, Kaleb Johnson probably would have been bumped up a notch if Cam would have run the 40. He's got speed. He's got some pretty decent long speed. I think one thing that everyone's talking about that we're counting down on Cam Skattebo, we're not counting against Jeanty, because Jeanty he's got long speed, but he's getting run down from behind by some defensive backs in some not so good teams that he's been playing against. So TreVeyon Henderson is the only one with really true elite long speed in this draft class, I think. But we've seen guys like him, like David Montgomery, Joe Mixon. I think he comes in and just earns a spot on the team. It's going to be really fun watching this guy because I think he's going to go probably second, third round. It's going to be so fun watching this guy in preseason. We're going to have a great time watching these running backs just demolish some insurance salesmen in the preseason. What's your thoughts on Cam Skattebo? Did I rank him too low? Should I have him number 2?
I think he should be top 5. I don't know where in that top 5 he should be, because I think that'll all, as private workouts get held, will shake itself out. My comp to him is James Conner, just because James Conner, when he was in college, ran the same way, just absolute bull, like absolutely, like if it's 4th and 1, you're gonna almost have to be off sides to get him down, and he may still run you over, like he may still get by you, like he is absolutely just, he has that dog in him, is the best way I can describe it. Like he is an absolute passion player. Like he's definitely going to be a guy that coaches will have to kind of keep steady on the sideline, just because I think he's a high energy. They cut away from him in certain times. I think they cut away from him in the title game because they were showing signs of a possible concussion. Then he tried to back out there, and so they were kind of like, maybe we shouldn't show him on the sidelines, because he was like throwing up whatever after a drive, and some were saying that's a sign of a concussion, but he was just nope.
He does have a little bit of it's not a tick. He did get interviewed about it, but he said in high school his helmet didn't fit right, so he'd always check it by shaking his head. So he's always shaking his head when he's on the sideline or in between plays. So that's not a concussion sign. So maybe that has something to do with it. Important note: 5'9.5 inches. He was listed at 5'11 for Arizona State. Did weigh in at 219. So big, thick lad, big hands too. 9 3/8. He ran for 1,711 yards on 293 attempts. So 5.8 yards per attempt, 21 touchdowns for Arizona State. So you want to talk about volume? Let's talk about volume. 44 receptions as well, 3 touchdowns, 22 years old. Only 1 year of production. I think he had an injury in 2023, Ryan Perrio.
Another comp would be Gus Edwards. If Gus Edwards could catch, like he's got receiving hands. Like he's even throws. He can even throw it. Like he absolutely is like a gadget guy back there. But he, if I would like to see him go to the Chargers, so they have the Gus bus, and then they can bring him the Skattebus. They could call him the Skattebus afterwards.
Beep beep. Yeah, people are getting out of the way if that's the case. He did win the Peach Bowl MVP in a loss, Ryan Perrio.
Yes. And and like I said, it wasn't that he put that game into overtime. Like that game was lost until he actually drove them down the field 3 straight times.
Played quarterback for him.
Yeah, played quarterback on one of the plays, like ran for 40 yards on another. Like by the way, Texas defense, which has maybe 3 or 4 first-round picks coming out of that lineup, couldn't get him on the ground. And so that speaks volume. It wasn't like Arizona State was blocking it up. He was going through the Texas defense pretty much single-handedly.
Yeah.
Like he's got some very impressive tape. I'm just worried that he's going to have a workout where his measurables don't add up to the production and he kind of gets pushed down a little bit just because he doesn't give them the numbers they want. But I think measurably wise, he's got all the measurables you want. I think his 40 time is really going to dictate where he falls in this ranking / draft class. But I think someone's going to get
Don't run.
Someone's getting a hell of a player, regardless. Like you look at Pacheco, 7th round pick, and he is absolutely the lifeblood of the Chiefs running game. Without them, like they had to go out in the street and get Kareem Jackson, who kind of was good but faded at the end.
Yeah, I have faith that two teams are going to fall in love with Cam Skattebo. Just talk to the guy. Like he's unbelievable. I really, really enjoyed watching him. 38.5-inch vert. He one of the best verts in the class. So at the combine, I think he said he pulled a hamstring. I'm like, well, you did a broad jump and a vert. So I don't know. I'm a little bit of an expert on that, but there's some hip extension going on in all of those. So anyways, moving on to my number 2 running back in this class. And I just had to bump this guy ahead of Cam Skattebo, Omarion Hampton. He works out a lot on Instagram. I love that. 21 years old, 281 talk about volume carries, 1,660 yards, 15 touchdowns, averaging 5.9 yards per attempt. And this guy is impressive because he's pretty much the only guy in the class who had like 2 years of elite production. So that's why I kind of bumped this guy up a little bit, because he does have elite production with elite volume to back it up. He is from North Carolina. Take your shirt off, wave around your head like a helicopter. Sophomore in high school, he ran for 2,435 touchdowns. 4-star recruit. What do you have to be a 5-star recruit coming out of high school, by the way? 4-star recruit. North Carolina, Mr. Football. His senior year, he went for 101 and 2 touchdowns as a freshman in his debut. First team all ACC, measured out at 6 foot flat, 221, 9 3/8 big hands on this guy. 4.46, 40, 38-inch vert, which is a half an inch less than Cam, and 18 reps on the bench press. The problem, I'm kind of disappointed in myself with ranking him here. Honestly, I just think the NFL is going to like him better, but I think I'm double counting his freak athleticism, because just watching his film, my first comment, I'm like, this guy's going to crush the combine. This guy is going to absolutely dominate everybody at the combine. He is the freakiest of freak athletes in this draft class, I think, across the offense as a whole. Like offensive line, there's some freaks on defense that are probably a little bit freakier than him, but just like he's like, my comp for him, he's like David Njoku if David Njoku was a running back. He's just got big freaky quads, big old ass, big upper body, skinny waist. Like this guy is terrifying in open space, and he's tough to tackle on contact, and he accelerates really, really fast. What's your thoughts on this guy, Omar?
Actually, my comp is your Browns teammate, Nick Chubb. He absolutely, he's dead. You look at their stats side by side, and they're pretty, like in some places, Omarion Hampton's a little faster. Nick Chubb jumped a little further in the long jump. Like they're just right there, like 4.51, 4.47, which Omarion Hampton probably had the most impressive combine of almost any position group. Like he absolutely balled out. Like to be that size and then run in the 4.4s. Only thing my worry about him is he really struggled in the pass catching drills. Like he really kind of had a lot of double clutches. So he may like Nick Chubb, he may just be settled into an early down and end of game, just beat you down kind of role in the NFL. But he has absolute elite athleticism, and like he probably has the most impressive physique of the running backs
Oh
outside
yeah.
of Ollie Gordon, who absolutely looked like a giant out there. Like it looked like they were handing it to like an offensive lineman. He was so big. I was like, my word.
Yeah,
But
Ollie Gordon, a guy we also didn't talk about, probably should have been in that list of guys that we're not going to talk about. Devin Neal in that range. He had a really good sophomore year, right? And then
mhm,
he just kind of, I don't know, maybe
yeah,
just enjoyed that NIL a little bit too much. Pretty big
mhm,
red flag there, Ryan Perrio
yeah.
for Ollie Gordon.
Pretty big red flag, but he is a pretty big man. He was like
Yeah,
when I was like you couldn't see the coaches when he was run by. Like he absolutely like blocked out everything. It was like like this is a guy that and these are running 4.5. Like in the back of the day, these would be 4.6, 4.7. Jerome Bettis ran a 4.6.
yeah.
Like it's just mind blowing how huge these guys are and how fast and how scary that is to be that freakishly athletic.
Yeah, I do think I think all of these guys are going to start right away, but we're going to get talking to the number one guy, the guy probably everyone's been waiting for, Mr. Ashton Jeanty. I saw a few people kind of floating that Omarion Hampton's going to be ranked ahead of him. Well, Ashton Jeanty ran for a kilometer more his senior year than Omarion Hampton did it. 26, what's the official stat here? He ran for 26:01, 29 touchdowns, 7 yards per carry. The only one who had more than that's TreVeyon Henderson on about a third of his total volume. Some fun facts about him. He's got a dog named Coco. Another Christian, love that. Migos is one of his favorite groups. Played for Dirt Cutter, which is a great name for a coach. He's also a good coach. He's famous. He's been famous for a while. He's got over a 500,000 followers on Instagram. His major is communications at Boise State. Measured in at 5'8.5", 211 pounds. A little bit lighter than I thought he'd be, honestly. I thought he'd be like 215, 220. 21 years old. 23 receptions would be his only red flag on his production, 1 touchdown off of that. But his sophomore season, he had 43 receptions. They just didn't use him as a pass catcher.
Yeah.
There's like we're going to take the guesswork out of it and just give the ball to damn Ashton Jeanty. Heisman runner-up, of course. Really, really interesting backstory to him. Son of a Navy chief, petty officer. He grew up in Virginia and then Italy. Moved out to Italy, where he played. So I guess they have, for all of the American like bases across Europe, they have different teams. And he played his first year of high school overseas, where he ended up in the base schools tournament, had 1,200 yards and 21 touchdowns, with the caveat being that was in 6 games. So he was like, Dad, I want to go play. Mom, Dad, I want to go play like actual football. I think I might be kind of good at this thing. And his parents were like, hell yeah, we're going to send you to Frisco. Play for Lone Star High School in Frisco, which is just down the road from where both of us are recording. He does have a hot girlfriend, which you love it. Christian, he's got a hot girlfriend. He's not going to be messing around this offseason. He's going to be sticking to getting in shape and getting ready to be, I hopefully, like a top 10, top 12 pick this season in the NFL draft. Massive head. That was my comp, my Nick Chubb comp to him. He's got the Nick Chubb head. So does Cam, by the way. Big old head on Cam Skattebo. You love that to lead the way in these tackles that he's breaking. He's got hurdles on his film, which is sweet at 5'8.5", that he's jumping over people. He probably would have tested very well in the combine. I'm kind of disappointed he didn't, because I think Harbaugh said it's like, you like competing, go compete. Here's your opportunity. Yeah. Go out and compete. And he's just like, nah. And I get it. Like, you have your agents and your family telling you not to go run. The only thing that can happen is something bad. So whatever.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Go run. Who cares? You ran for 2,600 yards your senior year, Ryan Perrio. I'll let you go ahead and take it away. I got more to say about this guy.
Okay. Do it for the fans is what I'd say.
Just do it for fans.
Yeah. But I think it's one of those things of, I think the more you like, it's basically when you have an amazing junior and you go back for a senior year and it doesn't work out. You get so much eyes on this person, because so much attention, that you just start to see the flaws. And that's, I think, the worry of a lot of the top prospects is what if he does run a 4.5? Does that drop him down underneath Omarion Hampton then? What are the things that you can chip away? But what I comp him to when I look at highlights, I would comp him to Edgar and James. Edgar and James
Okay.
has the same running style, a little upright, little, not super shifty, but shifty enough that he's by you. And once he's by you, he can get up and go.
Yeah.
And he's just basically the best athlete in that whole conference. Like there's nobody probably that could take him one-on-one. It was pros versus Joes.
Yeah.
And
I've got my comp to him, Maurice Jones-Drew, another little cannonball prospect, big guy. People kind of bounce off of him, bowling ball. I've got elite power, core strength, demonstrated some pretty elite core strength I love to see in a running back, elite vision, excellent speed. Doesn't have elite speed, has excellent speed. I have him as. Protects himself. There's some situations where he and Cam Skattebo did a really good job of this, is like when he's getting taken down from behind, because he did run down from behind a few times. Does a good job of like getting the knees out of the way, like the hip drop tackle stuff. He does a really good job of just being aware of like where his joints are and when he's vulnerable and when to take the slide and when to kind of try to run through somebody's face. He does have touchdown celebrations, shades of Jahmyr Gibbs, which I love to see. He's got a little bit of flair to him as well. I love everything about this guy. Texas, played high school football, hot girlfriend, Christian, elite in every aspect of his life. So I think Ashton Jeanty probably going to go, hopefully the Cowboys, I think would be my favorite landing spot. I've seen a lot of him getting drafted to the Raiders, which obviously would be not a ideal landing spot. I'd way rather he end up in Dallas so I can get myself a Jeanty jersey. But it sounds like Jerry Jones isn't super interested, so that's a bummer. Anyways, I love Ashton Jeanty. Anything else to say about him?
I was going to say two things. I think Dallas has a defensive tackle problem they need to get first because they only have 2 under contract. And,
a lot of free agents.
Yeah. But I think, to me, I'll say that's another comp. So another pro athlete that grew up in Italy and then came back to the States, Kobe Bryant. Another sport, but still kind of the same, like, just an elite athlete, just overseas, that grew up overseas and grew up in a disciplined household with a chief petty officer. I'm sure you don't sneak in late at night into that house. They're not letting you just not, pick up your toys or play video games all the time. Like they're regimenting he's basically perfect for a coach because he's already regimented. He's going to work out when he says he's going to work out. He's not going to be, you already got you don't have character concerns with that because he already probably has that innate fear of probably not for me to go out to nightclubs and party out late at night. Like I will, hang out with my boys and then we'll go to bed.
Say our prayers, take our vitamins, go to bed. Ashton Jeanty. That's what he's all about. And that's I think Caleb Williams, me following him on social media, I get that same vibe from him. That's why I have him, Caleb Johnson. That's why I have him ranked a little bit higher than a few other guys on the list. Ryan Perrio, that is our list for running backs. What position group do you want to do next? Wide receivers?
Ooh, we can do wide receivers. There's my bust. One of my busts is in that one. The other one's in the DBs.
You want to reveal right now? No one's listening this far in the episode.
Okay. My busts are Luther Burden III because he had the smallest hands. Also, I just didn't like his attitude. 8.5-inch hands as a wide receiver is not a good. It's not a world killer like quarterback, but still, it's like maybe that's. I just think once you get to the pro level, those little measurements start to matter. My other one is Jahdae Barron. I just think his measurables were so weak at the combine with 30-inch arms and just being really short that I think even as athletic as you can be, at a certain point, size just beats you. Like you're going against guys that are going to be 5'11" to 6'4" at all times. And if you're 5'10", 5'8", 5'9" with 30-inch arms, that's not going to bode well for defending. They're going to body you out.
So Luther Burden, I think he's a bust. I think he's a Steeler, though. I think he's going to get drafted by the Steelers in the second round, and he's going to be productive there for like 2 years. I think the reason I say that is because I think he's a little bit of a head case.
Yeah,
he is a freak athlete.
Was the other thing.
Yeah, he's got a lot on his film of like off-ball personal fouls, just attention to detail stuff. Yep.
A lot of jawing.
And I don't mind John, but like when you're getting penalties drawn on you,
Yeah. Calm it down.
I don't like that coming
And
out
it
of
felt
college.
like, it
Go
just
ahead.
didn't feel like the coach had control of that team at all. Like it
No.
looked like they were just. But yeah, Luther Burden's one of my bust.
Yeah, he's a guy who kind of fell down on my list. You turn on the highlights and you're like, oh, this guy's a bit of a freak, and then you kind of do some more digging into him, and he's like, this might not be all what
There's
it's
a work ethic
chalked up to
issue
be.
there that I don't.
Yeah.
That I also feel like it's part of the reason he had such a not statistical good last season.
Yeah. Well, he's got great efficiency numbers, but the one big red flag on his efficiency profile was his first down targets. He has like just horrendous first down targets, and I think that's because the team only went to him when they had to.
Yeah.
They didn't like the guy. They didn't like him as a person. They're like, this guy doesn't show up on time. It just shouts, character concerns, Luther Burden, which from where we're sitting, that's what we have to read into is just those kind of finer details. We don't get to sit down with him and interview him at the combine.
All right. Well, let's do wide receivers next then.
We'll do wide receivers next. This wide receiver class has gotten kind of talked down on. Don't worry. I've got 2 or 3 guys that honestly, people are talking about these guys. I've got some deep dive guys that I think can shine, but there's 4 or 5 starting wide receivers in this draft class. I think Ryan Perrio.
I don't think there's elite wide receiver ones like we had last year.
No.
Like there was not. But they're absolutely solid wide receivers that could become wide receiver ones in a couple years.
Yep. Yeah, I think so too, Ryan Perrio. Thank you guys for watching. My name's Jamie Jakes. You can subscribe to the channel. Leave a comment if you think we're dumb. Leave a comment if you think we're smart. Leave a like and share with your friends if you enjoyed it. Ryan Perrio, you have anything to say to the audience?
I'll be at the Addison Improv this weekend with John Heffron, but just other than that, watching football and taking notes.
Hell yeah. Thank you guys for watching. See you next time.